Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Academic texts in discourse analysis. Interactive assistant academic texts refer to scholarly writing produced by researchers, educators, and students in academic settings. These texts include research papers, journal articles, theses, dissertations, textbooks, and academic essays. In discourse analysis, academic texts are examined to understand how language is used to construct knowledge, establish authority, present arguments, and communicate within academic communities. The language of academic texts is often formal, specialized, and structured in a way that reflects the conventions of different disciplines, making them an important focus for understanding how academic discourse operates. Discourse analysis of academic texts involves exploring how these texts contribute to the production and dissemination of knowledge, how they reflect power dynamics in academia, and how they use rhetorical strategies to persuade and inform readers. By analyzing academic texts, researchers can uncover how language constructs academic identities, creates disciplinary boundaries, and communicates complex ideas in ways that both include and exclude different audiences. Key features of academic texts in discourse analysis. 1. Structure and organization. Academic texts follow specific structural conventions that help organize ideas, present arguments, and guide readers through the material. These structures, such as the use of introductions, literature reviews, method sections, and conclusions, reflect disciplinary norms and expectations. Example: in a scientific research paper, the IMRAD, introduction, methods, results, and discussion, structure is commonly used. Discourse analysis would examine how this structure reflects the scientific method of inquiry, guiding the reader through the logical progression of the research process. It would also analyze how different sections use distinct rhetorical strategies, e.g., the introduction might persuade the reader of the importance of the research, while the methods section provides objective, technical descriptions. 2. Use of citation and intertextuality. Academic texts heavily rely on citations and intertextuality, the relationship between texts, to build arguments and situate new research within the broader scholarly conversation. By citing previous studies, authors position their work within existing knowledge, demonstrating how their research contributes to or challenges established ideas. Example: in a literature review, an author might cite multiple sources to demonstrate the evolution of a particular theory. Discourse analysis would explore how citations are used not only to acknowledge prior work but also to construct an academic identity that aligns with or critiques certain schools of thought. It would also examine how citation practices create a network of authority, establishing which voices are legitimized in the field. 3. Rhetorical strategies and persuasion. Academic texts employ various rhetorical strategies to persuade readers of the validity of their arguments, such as appeals to logic, logos, credibility, ethos, and emotion, pathos. These strategies vary across disciplines but are essential for building convincing arguments in scholarly writing. Example: in a humanities paper, an author might use ethos by referring to their expertise or the expertise of scholars they cite to establish authority. Discourse analysis would examine how the text constructs academic credibility through language and how the author's use of persuasive strategies aligns with the conventions of the discipline. 4. Objectivity and formality. The language of academic texts is often marked by objectivity and formality, which reflect the scholarly norms of presenting unbiased, rational, and carefully considered arguments. Authors use impersonal language, passive voice, and technical terms to convey professionalism and distance from personal biases. Example: in a research article, the sentence, "Data were collected and analyzed using statistical software," reflects objectivity by using passive voice and avoiding personal pronouns. Discourse analysis would explore how these linguistic choices construct a formal, scientific tone that reinforces the perception of the research as impartial and credible. 5. Disciplinary language and jargon. Each academic discipline has its own specialized language and jargon, which helps convey complex ideas efficiently but can also create barriers for those outside the field. Discourse analysis examines how this specialized language functions within academic texts and how it reflects the values and epistemologies of specific disciplines. Example: in economics, terms like opportunity cost or marginal utility are used to communicate specific concepts. Discourse analysis would focus on how the use of such jargon positions the text within the disciplinary boundaries of economics and how it signals the author's membership in the academic community of that field. 6. Argumentation and evidence. Academic texts rely on argumentation and the use of evidence to support claims. The way arguments are constructed and how evidence is presented varies across disciplines but is central to the persuasive power of academic writing. Discourse analysis examines the logic of arguments, the types of evidence used, and how evidence is interpreted within the text. Example: in a legal academic paper, the author might use precedent cases as evidence to support a legal argument. Discourse analysis would explore how the author selects and interprets evidence to construct a persuasive legal argument and how this reflects broader legal discourses around case law and judicial reasoning. 7. Voice and authorial presence. The authorial voice in academic texts can range from highly present, where the author's opinions and interpretations are emphasized, to almost invisible, where the text focuses purely on presenting facts and evidence. Discourse analysis investigates how academic writers construct their authorial identity through language choices and how this affects the tone and authority of the text. Example: in qualitative research, an author might explicitly acknowledge their role in the research process, using phrases like, "As the researcher, I observed." Discourse analysis would examine how this acknowledgement of the researcher's subjectivity contrasts with the objective tone typically found in quantitative research. Methods for analyzing academic texts in discourse. 1. Critical discourse analysis, CDA. Critical discourse analysis, CDA, is used to examine how power relations, ideology, and social structures are reflected in academic texts. CDA focuses on how language in scholarly writing reinforces academic hierarchies, disciplines, and institutional norms. Example: a CDA of research articles in elite academic journals might reveal how certain research topics or methodologies are privileged, while others are marginalized. The analysis would explore how the language of the articles reflects and perpetuates these power structures, shaping what is considered valuable or legitimate knowledge in the field. 2. Intertextual analysis. Intertextual analysis examines how academic texts reference and build upon other texts, focusing on how citations, quotes, and references construct a network of scholarly dialogue. This method is particularly useful for understanding how academic knowledge is constructed through the interplay of multiple voices and sources. Example: in a theoretical paper on feminism, the author might cite foundational works by Judith Butler, Simone de Beauvoir, and bell hooks. Discourse analysis would explore how the author engages with these texts to position their argument within feminist discourse and how these citations construct an intellectual lineage that legitimizes the current research. 3. Rhetorical analysis. Rhetorical analysis focuses on the use of rhetorical strategies to persuade readers. This method examines how academic texts employ ethos, pathos, and logos to build arguments and how these strategies vary by discipline. Example: in a scientific paper, logos, logical appeal, is often dominant, with authors using data, graphs, and statistical analysis to support their claims. Discourse analysis would explore how these rhetorical strategies work together to convince readers of the reliability and significance of the findings, reflecting the values of evidence-based reasoning in the sciences. 4. Genre analysis. Genre analysis investigates how academic texts conform to the conventions of specific genres, such as research articles, literature reviews, or book reviews. This method examines how these genres shape the organization, language, and rhetorical strategies of academic writing. Example: a genre analysis of dissertations might focus on how different academic disciplines structure their dissertations, comparing the use of literature reviews, methodologies, and conclusions in humanities versus STEM fields. Discourse analysis would explore how genre conventions shape the presentation of research and the construction of academic identity. Examples of academic texts in discourse analysis. Example 1. Power relations in elite academic journals. Elite academic journals often set the standard for what is considered high-quality research. Discourse analysis of articles published in these journals might reveal how language reflects power dynamics in academia, such as the prioritization of certain methodologies, e.g., quantitative over qualitative, or the privileging of topics that align with dominant ideologies. For example, a CDA might reveal how studies using experimental designs are framed as more rigorous, reinforcing the hierarchy of evidence that favors positivist research paradigms. Example 2. Argumentation in legal scholarship. In legal academic writing, authors often rely on legal precedents and case law to construct their arguments. Discourse analysis of a legal research paper might examine how the author uses legal terminology, references to past cases, and logical reasoning to persuade readers of a particular interpretation of the law. The analysis would focus on how the language of argumentation reflects the values of legal reasoning, such as consistency, authority, and the role of precedent in shaping legal discourse. Example 3. Authorial voice in qualitative research. Qualitative research often emphasizes the subjectivity of the researcher and the interpretive nature of the research process. Discourse analysis of a qualitative research article might focus on how the author constructs their authorial voice through phrases like, "I observed," or "my interpretation suggests." This contrasts with quantitative research, where the author often adopts a more impersonal tone, using passive voice and avoiding personal pronouns. Discourse analysis would examine how the presence or absence of the authorial voice reflects different epistemological approaches to knowledge production. Example 4. Intertextuality in theoretical texts. Theoretical academic texts, particularly in the humanities and social sciences, rely heavily on intertextuality to build arguments. Discourse analysis of a theoretical paper in philosophy might explore how the author engages with canonical philosophers like Kant or Foucault to position their argument within existing philosophical debates. The analysis would focus on how these references construct an intellectual conversation and how the author's work is positioned within this broader scholarly context. Example 5. Objectivity in scientific writing. In scientific writing, objectivity is a key value, often reflected in the use of the passive voice and formal, technical language. Discourse analysis of a scientific research article might focus on how language constructs a sense of detachment and impartiality, such as in the phrase, "The data were analyzed using statistical software." The analysis would explore how the text's linguistic features contribute to the construction of scientific authority and credibility, emphasizing the separation between the researcher and the research process. Challenges in analyzing academic texts through discourse. 1. Complexity of specialized language. Academic texts often use highly specialized language and jargon, making it challenging for discourse analysts to fully understand the nuances of the text without expertise in the specific field. Analysts must carefully navigate these disciplinary conventions to accurately interpret the language used. 2. Institutional power dynamics. Academic texts are embedded within broader institutional structures that privilege certain voices and knowledge systems over others. Discourse analysts must account for how these power dynamics shape the language of academic texts and the norms of academic writing. 3. Interdisciplinary variations. Different academic disciplines have distinct discursive practices, which can make it difficult to apply a single analytical framework across multiple fields. Discourse analysts must be sensitive to the unique conventions of each discipline when analyzing academic texts. Conclusion. Academic texts play a crucial role in the production and dissemination of knowledge within scholarly communities. Discourse analysis of these texts provides insights into how language constructs academic authority, communicates complex ideas, and shapes disciplinary boundaries. By examining the structure, use of citations, rhetorical strategies, and specialized language in academic writing, discourse analysts can uncover the power dynamics, ideologies, and social practices that underpin scholarly communication. Whether analyzing research articles, theoretical essays, or dissertations, discourse analysis offers a valuable lens for understanding how knowledge is constructed, legitimized, and communicated in academia. Frequently asked questions. What is the focus of discourse analysis in academic texts? Discourse analysis of academic texts examines how language constructs knowledge, authority, and disciplinary norms within scholarly writing. It highlights how academic language shapes arguments, reflects power dynamics, and aligns with specific epistemological traditions. Why is the structure and organization of academic texts important in discourse analysis? Academic texts follow specific structures, e.g., IMRAD in scientific papers, that reflect disciplinary norms. Discourse analysis explores how these structures organize arguments and guide readers, revealing how different sections serve distinct rhetorical purposes, like establishing credibility or presenting evidence. How does citation function as a discursive tool in academic writing? Citations and intertextuality position academic work within established knowledge, showing its relationship to previous studies. Discourse analysis investigates how citation practices legitimize certain voices, establish authority, and align the text within scholarly debates or traditions. What role do rhetorical strategies play in academic texts? Rhetorical strategies like appeals to logic, logos, credibility, ethos, and emotion, pathos, help persuade readers. Discourse analysis identifies how academic texts use these strategies to construct compelling arguments that vary across disciplines, depending on their norms and expectations. How is objectivity reflected in academic texts? Objectivity is often achieved through formal language, passive voice, and technical terms. Discourse analysis examines how these linguistic choices create a detached, impartial tone, reinforcing the credibility and scientific rigor of the text. Why is disciplinary language and jargon important in academic discourse? Specialized language allows efficient communication within a discipline but can exclude those outside it. Discourse analysis investigates how jargon creates in-group understanding, signals expertise, and reinforces disciplinary boundaries in academic communities. How is evidence used in academic texts, and why does it matter in discourse analysis? Academic texts use evidence to support claims, with specific disciplines favoring certain types, e.g., statistical data in sciences, case law in legal writing. Discourse analysis explores how evidence is selected and presented to construct arguments and how it reflects disciplinary standards. What is authorial voice in academic texts, and how does it vary? Authorial voice ranges from highly personal, e.g., I observed, to impersonal, reflecting different epistemological approaches. Discourse analysis examines how academic writers construct their presence, affecting tone, authority, and the perceived objectivity of the text. How does critical discourse analysis, CDA, apply to academic texts? CDA focuses on how power, ideology, and social structures manifest in academic language. It reveals how certain research topics or methodologies are privileged, highlighting how discourse in elite journals or texts reflects and perpetuates academic hierarchies. What challenges arise when analyzing academic texts through discourse? Challenges include navigating specialized jargon, addressing institutional power dynamics that shape academic norms, and accounting for interdisciplinary variations. Discourse analysts must be mindful of these complexities to accurately interpret academic language.